Hello folks, in this video we're going to talk about Jenkins. So this video is mostly going to be about how to get started with Jenkins and how to quickly get your hands dirty and try out Jenkins. So yeah, let's get started. So Jenkins is actually a continuous integration and continuous delivery tool. So it helps you to you know when you're working in a team, so when you work parallelly along with your colleagues on the same set of like projects, let's say a single project to start with, and you are all contributing code to this project. At some point, I mean, every day, every few hours, you will be actually pushing code to your repository, let it be Git or could be anything. So when you are actually writing code, you will actually be integrating your code with the code that your colleagues have written. And the sooner you integrate and check and test your software, it's better for you. So continuous integration and continuous delivery are principles, processes, and a set of tools put together to help you to integrate your software faster and find issues faster when it comes to integrating software. And continuous delivery is about delivering your software easily and as soon as possible. There's also something called continuous deployment. Like in terms of git commits, it's like every commit you go and deploy it automatically and
It's
distribute.
11:15.
Okay, I'll have to stop that. Okay, so every commit you will automatically deploy and distribute it to your customers. So that's continuous deployment. So you could go and check out these concepts: continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment. Okay. So chances are that you probably already know all this, and that's why you came up to Jenkins, and you want to learn how to get started with it. So as I said, Jenkins is actually a tool for helping you with continuous integration and continuous delivery. So here it says it's an automation server. So yeah, it in short terms or in basic terms, it's simply a tool that runs some tasks for you. The task could be compiling a project, running tests for your project, or anything. So or even deploying. Yeah. So here they're talking about how it has some plugins support to build, deploy, and automate your project. So let's get started with the download button and let's see how to install it and run it. So I am actually going to use the Docker Docker image for Jenkins. So I usually highly recommend using Docker to get started with any new software usually because it's very easy to install it and also get rid of it as soon as possible. You won't have any issues. Um, Unlike other ways of installation where it'll be a bit harder to delete stuff or even install stuff. So I am actually going to choose the LTS version, the long-term support version, and go ahead with Docker. So for this video, we'll be extensively using Docker containers and Docker. So I would recommend you to install Docker. I am using Mac and I have a Docker for desktop, Mac desktop. Okay. So if you go and click on the Docker over here, it'll take you to Docker Hub, a place where Docker images are actually hosted publicly. If you've heard of Docker Hub before, so I am actually going to use this Docker image, and the tag is LTS, that is long-term support. And there is a documentation over here. So let's go here. Okay, so there is code for this Docker image over here if you want to go check it out. I'm just going to go ahead and like run it. So to run the Docker container for Jenkins, they are recommending you to use this, the LTS version of Docker image. This, and they are also mentioning how to publish some ports and how to retain the data even if the container goes away. So I have the command ready over here with me. To start with, so I am actually going to note down these commands, and put it down in a repo, and put the link to this repo in the YouTube description. So to start with, we'll be creating a volume. So we'll call it as Jenkins underscore volume. So that's created. So if you go and do docker volume ls, you should be able to see it. Okay. The next thing is run the container, uh, run the Jenkins container. So this will be, I'll just put hash. So this is run with port 8080 and everything with the volume. I'm also actually putting another volume over here called var/run/docker.sock, which is a socket file to connect to the Docker daemon that's running in my machine. So I'm doing this because I won't actually run any tasks like using Jenkins, but I want to run each and every task in a Docker container. Okay, so we'll come to this part soon. I also am running the container as a root user because I want to do some installations later inside this. So yeah, you can go ahead and run this. So actually currently it's like the image is not present in my local, so it's going to get it. So in the meantime, we can actually go check out what Jenkins is all about. So in the Jenkins.io webpage, so you just have to type Jenkins.io and it should take you to this place. And so in this website, you can actually see a lot of information. Yep. But you just need to go to download our documentation. So since we've already checked out the download part, let's go to documentation. So you can read about what is Jenkins and about this documentation. So here you can see how they mention that Jenkins is a self-contained open source automation server. So it's a server-side software. It runs in a machine and it's a long-running process, and which can be used to automate all sorts of tasks related to building, testing, and delivering or deploying a software. And you can see about the documentation over here. So there are tutorials and there is a guided tour. I would recommend to check out the guided tour to start with. So yeah, it talks about downloading, so you can skip this, and it starts with creating your first pipeline. So currently we are not running Jenkins yet. So okay, so we are already running it. Cool. So it downloaded the image and it is running in the background in a detached mode or in daemon mode. So you can see the container here. You can do Docker PS and you can see the container. And since it's running in port 8080 and I published it, I can just do localhost 8080 and I should see Jenkins running already. And so to start with, Jenkins is going to ask you to ensure that Jenkins is securely set up by an admin. So this is like a secret thingy that you have to get from your logs. So a password has been written to the log and this file on the server. So I am going to get into the, I don't have to get into the Docker container. I could to get this, or I could just do Docker logs. You can do the Docker PS first. Get this container ID and do Docker logs -f, and you should be able to see the token over here. So Jenkins initial setup is required, an admin user has been created and a password generated. So this is the password for the admin user. Please use the following password to proceed to the installation. So you just put this and you should be able to continue. Okay, so it'll ask you to customize Jenkins with something called plugins. So if you have heard of plugins before, that's awesome. If you haven't, this is similar to how you have plugins for your browser or extensions for your browser. So this will provide some extra superpower features to your Jenkins. So it's going to ask you to either select the plugins and customize it yourself, or you can just install the suggested. I am just going to go ahead and install the suggested plugins. So this is going to take a few moments, probably a minute. So while this is going on, um, like you can go through the Jenkins documentation and learn more about Jenkins, and look around. So what we are going to do is I am going to actually get a example project that I have. So I'll stop the logs over here. Do goes as example project. Okay. So I have an example project here. So this is a Spring Boot project, and I am going to actually build this project using Gradle. So we'll be using this repo. Yep. You could use any repo you want. I'm just going to use this repo. The thing about this repo is just that the project is not at the root level, but is inside this directory. That's fine. You just have to make sure that you configure Jenkins in such a way that it runs your tests, build, and everything properly inside this project. So I have a Jenkins file over here in my project. So yep. So since this is going on for quite some time, I'll explain what will be the next steps that we do. So given this is the repo that I'm going to use for for this demo, I'll tell you what we'll be doing. So with this repo, I want to actually build this project and make sure that whenever I do a commit in my repository, or anyone does a commit in the repository and then pushes the commit, it makes sure that all the commits put together, that is the latest version, that is the commit that is pointed by the master branch or any branch or main branch, what anything, has proper code, that is the tests run, the compilation runs, and everything, right? So to do that, I'll have to configure an automated task in Jenkins and say, hey Jenkins server, run the build for me. So in this case, since it's a Gradle project, I'll say run Gradle build. So to do this configuration, any continuous integration or continuous delivery tool will have its own configuration file or some way to configure things, or even configuration through code. So in Jenkins, it's actually a configuration file. So it's called a Jenkins file. Um, so it looks something like this for Java, and there is some examples for Ruby, Python, and more. Golang, PHP, Python, Node.js, and all that. So I have used something similar to this. Here Maven is being used to build the project, and I have used Gradle. So there are some steps on how to get started on setting up that this is the repo that Jenkins has to use. So Jenkins is going to actually pull the code from this repository. So since this is a public repository, there are no issues. If it's a private repository, you will have to make sure that Jenkins tool, the server, can actually access your repository, pull the source code, and then run the build or test or whatever you have configured as an automated task in your Jenkins file. So you can actually follow these steps. So this is still going on, so I'll have to wait to follow these steps. And what else did I have? So one more thing to notice, actually, Jenkins has two set of user interfaces. One is this classic user interface that it has. It's not exactly fancy. It took quite some time for me to understand it. I'll show you that first, and then I'll also show you um, how you could use something like Blue Ocean, which is a better user interface according to Jenkins documentation. I've not tried it before. Maybe I'll just try it out during this demo and show you how it looks like. But I'll be doing that only at the end. And if it doesn't work out, maybe I'll do a separate, video on that, because this is going to be the first time that I'm going to try out Blue Ocean. So I'm just waiting for this whole thing to be over so that I can configure what I was mentioned here. Okay, we are almost near the end. I think I could have just customized and said I don't want Subversion, because I'm not using Subversion. I have no idea what this is. I'm not going to use the LDAP or email extension, but that's fine. It's okay.
It's 11:30.
Okay, so we are done, I think, and it's taking quite some time. So while this is going on, should finish up. Okay, yeah, it's done. So I can create my first user. I'm just going to go ahead and say Karpaya. I'm going to give the same. I'm going to give the same. My full name is going to give this, and that's my email ID. And yep, that's the URL. Start using Jenkins. Awesome. So we are done, creating. Running the Jenkins server. So there are some options over here: create an agent and whatnot. Maybe don't start clicking these yet. I think this is what we wanted to do initially. New item. Or you could just follow whatever was mentioned over here. Let me keep these two nearby and get rid of others. I'll come to this later. Yeah. So the first thing is, you can copy one of the examples below that it mentioned here, the Jenkins file. I already have it. You can say new item. So I'm just going to go ahead and say new item and give a name. So I'll just give my pipeline. That's fine. I'm just trying things out. So multi-branch pipeline. Uh, you could go ahead and understand what these different things are doing. I'm just going to follow this and show you how things work out. So this multi-branch pipeline is about creating a set of pipeline projects according to detected branches in one source code management repository. So actually I have only one branch. It's fine. I don't have to do multi-branch, but I don't know if there's anything like single branch. I'm not sure. There is also something about scanning a full GitHub organization or user account and stuff like that. I'm not going to go ahead and scan all my repositories, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Okay, so that's cool. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this name over here and call it this example project, or still call it my pipeline itself. My pipeline for example project, and I need to add a source, that is the source code that will have to be pulled by Jenkins to run something. So here I can say git, or I can even say GitHub. So when I say GitHub, you can actually um, mention the repo over here. So okay. So there is also one is you can use the HTTPS URL, um, something like this. Cut this part and click validate and see if it works out. So it says it's connected, okay. Or you could also do this. You can do a repository scan. Apparently it's deprecated visualization. I don't know. I'm just going to put my username, and it's going to scan all my repos over here. I think this is a cool feature, and then it's going to show it in list for me, and I can choose like this too. This is also awesome. You can try this, or you can go ahead with the HTTPS URL. I think that's pretty easy. You don't have to wait for this repository scanning and everything, but it's just there. I'm just showing it to you. I just want one repo, so like one source code, one source. So I'm just not going to do more add source, and I'm fine with all the default settings. So the configuration for the build, that is a build configuration, is going to come through Jenkins file. That's the only option currently. The path is actually not at the root. It's under Spring Stuff slash example project slash Jenkins file. So I'm just going to have to do this. So that's the path, and periodically, if not otherwise, run. So periodically you can run this. I could do this, or I'll just go ahead and manually run. That's fine. Or we can come back and change this too. This is not like a one-time thing, and you cannot come back and change. So I think this is good, and I'm gonna apply and save it. Okay. So currently, it's going to be running a build, I think. So I'm just going to go ahead and click master. So this will show you for this master branch what are the builds that are available. So it's showing how there was a build a few seconds ago. So branch indexing, console output. Okay, cool. So the build failed actually the first time. So what happened over here is, so this is the first build. Maybe I should just click back to project. Okay, I'll show you from the starting how it will look like the dashboard. You type localhost 8080, you see this thing called my pipeline, and you click, and you see the status has failed. This is the status, and this is like a weather report. It says like all recent builds failed, or last 5 builds failed, and things stuff like that. And you cannot see the logs over here yet. You can see scan repository log. That's it. To see the build logs, you have to go inside the branch. So this is the master branch, and now you can actually see the last build and different builds. So I'm just going to go ahead and click this last build, or you can see the build history here. You can click this one, and now you can see the console output. So it says running in durability level and all that, and the error is this: invalid agent type Docker specified, must be one of any label. So what's happening over here is, I have defined this as my Jenkins file. So this is the first time, I'm going to explain what is going on over here. So in this Jenkins file, I'm defining a pipeline, and a pipeline is like a usual real life pipeline, right? Like there are many pipes and stuff like that. So here it's more like there are stages, and it goes after each and every stage like a pipe. Okay, so there are stages, and each stage can be named, and then each stage can have steps, and you can run something in those steps. Okay, so here what I'm doing is, uh, every command that you run is actually running at the root, so you have to make sure that you get into example project. So here what I'm doing is, I'm calling my stages build, and I have one step over here. So this is actually, I think, Groovy. You can go check it out. So I am running one step over here, which is a shell sh, and in that sh I'm running this cd change directory to example project, and then run Gradle build. But for Gradle build to run, I actually need Gradle installed, and this is actually happening in my Jenkins server. So it should have Gradle. So there are ways to actually install Gradle in Jenkins server using a like Gradle plugin and all that. But I am going to be using Docker images and run any commands in Docker containers. Okay, so that you don't have to get any plugin for anything. Even if there's no plugin, you can still just use the Docker image, and whatever is installed in the Docker image can be used in your scripts. So I have an agent over here which is saying that I need a Docker agent, I need a Docker container with this image, and I want to run all the commands inside this Docker container. So for this to run, you need to actually configure this. So I will go to the dashboard, and I'll show you how to configure this. So before doing anything, you'll have to go to the dashboard and click this manage Jenkins. Okay, so this is your first step for configuration for any admin related thing. Uh, you go to manage Jenkins, and from here you have a lot of options. The option that we are going to choose is about plugins. So for Docker, you actually need two plugins. One is the Docker plugin itself. Let's search for it in available Docker. Cool. So I am going to press enter, and so you can see Docker pipeline over here, and you can see Docker over here. Okay, I'm just going to click these two, and you can also go in and check out these plugins. So this is a plugin that we need, and this is also a plugin that we need, Docker pipeline, to run Docker in the pipeline, from Jenkins pipeline projects, and this is for like Docker containers and stuff like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and like select these two, Docker and Docker pipeline, and I'll say install without restart. So when you say without restart, it means without restarting Jenkins server itself. If you say install after restart, you'll have to restart your Jenkins server. I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to go ahead and click that. And if you notice, it's doing some checking internet connectivity and everything, and these are pending. So I actually chose only Docker and Docker pipeline, and it internally looks like it internally wanted Docker API, Docker comments, and all that. So cool. So it installed these two. This is installed too. Docker pipeline is still pending. Cool. Everything has been installed. Let's go to the main page. And now, after doing this, you'll actually have to configure Docker. Okay. So you'll have to go to, okay, I'll start from here. So you'll have to go to the dashboard, click manage Jenkins, and click this option this time, which is called manage nodes and cloud, add, remove, control, monitor, and all that. And here you have this one machine that is our Docker container, which is also, this is the Jenkins Docker container, and it also has enough RAM and everything. And now what I'm going to do is here click on this thing called configure clouds. Here you can see something called add new cloud, and click on Docker. Cool. So now for this name, just keep it as Docker. In Docker cloud details, click on this, and now you'll have to actually mention what is your Docker host URL. Okay, so you can actually mention it as like I think it's going to be let me check this out, 1 second. So I noted down every step that I tried out so that it's easier for me to get back to it. Okay. Okay, so this is what I need to use. And there are no credentials, and I'll enable this, and then I don't want to expose anything. So when I type this, I also want to test it. So it says all good. So if I make a mistake here, if I test it, it's going to say like null or something like file not found or some issue, right? Like if your Docker daemon is not running, that's going to be an issue. So make sure that you actually connect to the Docker daemon through something. Here I'm connecting it through the socket file and use this Unix protocol. You can also put TCP expose your Docker daemon through a port and use that too. So I am just going to go ahead and fix that test connection. So it will show you the Docker version, API version, and everything. And you can click apply, save, and if you go to manage, no, if you go to manage Jenkins, manage nodes and clouds, configure clouds, you'll be able to see the Docker over here still present and all the details over here. So now we'll go to the dashboard. Now the thing is this, you can go ahead and run your pipeline, but it will still not work because though the Docker daemon is there, there is no Docker client to talk to the Docker daemon that is installed in our Docker container. Like here, I have Jenkins installed inside this container, but I don't have Docker client inside this.
It's
Because of this,
11:45.
It will not run. So I'll show you. You can click on build now. After going to you can go to my pipeline master and click build now. So let's go and see what's happening. So you can see all the builds over here. You can also see it here now. Click the second one and click console output. And cool. So this time, if you notice, things worked out. It was able to pull the repository and everything. So it accepted that the Jenkins file is right. It didn't give any errors for the configuration of Jenkins file. But this time it will actually try to run something called Docker, and it will say Docker not found. So now we'll have to go and install Docker inside our Docker container. So like Docker client, right? So what I'm going to do is, I'll say Docker ps and tell Docker exec -it and then give the Docker container ID and say bash. Okay. So now this is actually oops. Okay. How do I find? I think this is a Debian machine and not an Ubuntu machine, but I need to verify this. Verify Debian machine. So how to check your Debian Linux version? So it says LSB underscore this. There's no LSB here for me. The last time I tried it was there. Okay. I think that's fine. Let's just move on and try it out with Debian. Or should I? Apparently there is okay. So there is something called /etc/issue. So it is Debian Linux name. So this is a Debian thing. So I am going to install Docker and Debian. So there is a way to do this. So there is a, you know, oops, I missed to mention the, install. I mean, you can go through the video and understand the steps. I'm just going to go ahead and say add, repo. Hmm, how do I say? Add item with repo information, and then install Docker and Docker for Docker pipeline plugins in Jenkins, and then install Docker CLI client in Jenkins Docker container. Okay, so I'll put the links for these two too. Okay, and oops. Okay, I'm gonna pause for now. Okay, we're back. Okay, so I am going to be using this documentation for installing Docker Engine or Debian. So I'm just going to go ahead and run these. Apparently, we don't want these to be present. Oh, I don't need sudo because I'm already root, and I don't need get. I can just do apt. Okay, so these are not present, so it's all good. So you can run these dash, and then docker exec -id container id and bash. Okay, I'll probably put this as oops no. No. Okay, so now after this I can actually do a apt update. So this is going to update things, update the index, and I can do apt install these. Apt install. Okay, that's a lot. I hope it's done in a few moments. In the meantime, I'll copy the other stuff. Can I copy this too? Yep. Awesome. Okay, 75%. Okay, I think it's nearing the end now. So the remaining is like pretty simple. Like you add some keys so that it can do some verification, and then like install it. I'm not going to install everything over here. I'm just going to go and install the command line interface client for Docker. Awesome. So we're done here. We don't need the sudo. Cool. We don't need the sudo. Okay. We're done with that. And we can do a fingerprint thing. Okay, all good. That's that. And then we can do this. Actually, I don't have this LSB release thing. Oh, now I do have it. Okay, I think I should have installed something. Probably one of these did that. Like probably software properties common, right? Did that. So now it says I have stretch, Debian stretch and all that. So I can do this. Okay, that's done. And okay, so I can do apt update now and then apt install. So apt update, apt install docker CECLI. Okay, let's do that. Okay, that's done, and we will do this, and we should be done with this. With this, I should be able to just run docker and it should just run. Yep. So previously it said docker command not found. Now I can do docker, and I can also do docker ps because there is a socket. So I can actually see inside my docker container that there are containers running in my host machine, which is the Jenkins, right? So now if you go to your dashboard, I'll close everything. Now if you go to your dashboard, click my pipeline, master, and say build now, you can see a third build running over here. You can hover over and click, and you can see your console output over here. So now if you notice, Jenkins has your source code. If you can notice here, Karpia 7890 slash spring stuff and all that. Now it's actually pulling Docker, a Docker image, which is this, the Gradle 6.6 that I mentioned here, so that it can run Gradle build, right? So it's actually pulling it now. So let's see how it goes. And we can also see this image in our local machine. Currently, there's only Jenkins image present over here, if you can notice. So after this pull is complete, you'll be able to see even the Gradle image. That's because we are reusing the Docker daemon for everything, the Docker daemon that's present in my host machine. So you should be able to see all the images that we are using over here. Okay, so it's taking some time to run this. Okay. Okay, so it's running. You can also see the new container running over here, Gradle 6.6.0-JDK14, and you can notice that the new image has been downloaded over here, some 700 MB. That's a lot. At some point, it's going to finish this Docker container, finish running this Docker container. So the Gradle build is actually running now. This is going to take some time, but you can see how it's running this whole thing, right? So that's how you can get started with Jenkins along with Docker for everything, for running Jenkins itself and for running your builds using Docker
It's 12.
containers. Uh, so that's all I had for this demo. You can go ahead and try out Jenkins and post your comments, any questions in the YouTube comments. And you can also reach out to me. My email ID is karupaya7890 at gmail.com. That's my email ID, and yep, bye bye.